Hi Trailblazers, 7th graders. Here's your second video this week, and again I combined two sections into one video because nobody wants to watch 4 videos in 1 week. So we're going to talk about how science changes, and then we're going to flip the script a little bit and talk about models as tools in science. So to get started, how does scientific knowledge change? Scientific knowledge changes all the time as we get new evidence or as we interpret evidence we've had in different ways. So like dinosaur extinction theory, we're going to talk about theories. Those are the ones that change. Was it asteroids? Was it a supernova? Was it volcanoes? What was it that caused the dinosaurs to go extinct? And there are different theories based on the evidence we have. So scientific knowledge, when we talk about it, is built up cautiously, meaning we don't accept new explanations after just one successful experiment. Rather, we test that explanation many times by many different scientists to see if it's correct. That's us being cautious as scientists. So a theory, let's talk about theories for a minute because we're going to talk about the difference between laws and theories. A theory is a well-tested explanation. Now, you notice I use that word explanation for a wide range of observations or experimental results. Theories tend to change over time. So when we look at cell theory, and that's that all life comes from cells, it changed from Robert Hooke all the way up into what we believe now. So Robert Hooke found cells by looking at cork. He thought that they, at first, noticed that they just looked like tiny boxes or honeycomb. And then we've got Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who helped modify Robert Hooke's theories, and he saw single-celled organisms living in ponds. And he called them animalcules. He then looked at blood cells from fish, birds, frogs, and humans. He then concluded, because he kept seeing these cells, that they were in all plants and animals. We go up a couple hundred years to Matthias Schleiden, and he found that all plant parts are made of cells. Next year, Theodor Schwann found that all animals are composed of cells. And then Rudolf Virchow concluded that cells must arrive from cells that are already there. And that is cell theory, that all cells come from existing cells. And that sounds like duh to us because we've been raised knowing that. But back then, people thought life just spontaneously happened. They didn't really understand that life had to come from existing cells. So theories change over time. And as we get new observations or new information, those theories can change. Laws are very different. Laws are statements that describe what scientists expect to happen every single time under a particular set of conditions. However, laws do not explain why that event is happening. For instance, the simplistic view of the law of gravity says what goes up must come down. Does it explain why when things go up they come down? No, and laws don't do that. Laws do not change. It's something we as humans have been observing since we were aware of our surroundings. So theories can change, laws not so much. So unlike theories, a scientific law describes an observed pattern in nature without attempting to explain it. And I did just describe that earlier. All right. So that was pretty much it. We'll do activity in a classroom with theories and laws. We're going to switch gears now to models. Now, in science, a model is a representation of an object or a process. And I think I put the wrong graphic on it. So this graphic of theories and laws should have been on the previous slide. So just disregard that. That's what happens when you work in at 6:30 in the morning. But let's talk about models for a second. A model is a representation of an object or process. So a model could be a picture. It could be a diagram. It could be a computer program. It could be a mathematical equation. It could be a globe. There's lots of different things that are examples of scientific models. So why do we use models? It's because we want to understand things we can't observe directly, either that are really, like we can't get to the Earth's core without dying. We just can't. So that's almost impossible for us with the technology we have today. But we still want to study how the Earth works. Maybe it's the universe. We can't really go to the far reaches of the universe to understand it, so we're going to make models. That's on a macro or big level. We also use models for small things like atoms and cells, things that are kind of difficult for us to study because, again, we don't have the technology to really get us there. When we talk about models, we have to know that models are usually, we make models of systems. So a system is a group of parts that work together to perform a function to produce a result. So this is showing, the water cycle, which is totally a system. It's a system here on Earth. What does it do? It's how we cycle fresh water through an ecosystem or through our planet. So we have evaporation, condensation, precipitation, all these different parts of a system working together to cycle water throughout an ecosystem. All right, so systems have common properties. They have an input, the material or energy that goes in the system. So let me use a bicycle for an example. So the input in a bicycle can be a couple of different things, because all systems, they at least have to have one input, one process, and one output, but they can have more than one. So let's just focus on the bike for a minute. We can talk about the mechanical energy that is put into a bike by pedaling the pedals. That is an input, energy. So we are inputting mechanical energy. What happens? Well, when we input the process, what happens when we input that mechanical energy, pedaling those pedals causes that chain, there's a chain on a bike, to rotate. That chain causes the wheels to spin. The output is that the energy, the bike is moving forward. Now, feedback doesn't always occur in a system, but what is an output that changes the system. For instance, if I'm riding a bike and my chain pops, that's feedback that's going to change the system. I'm not going to be able to continue to go. Okay? So we make models of systems, whether they're simple systems or they're complex. So we want to use models to understand how systems work. For instance, in this graphic, I've got a basic food chain, and it shows that, okay, these birds, the butterfly and the insects, they're eating the leaves, the grass, the trees. The mouse, in turn, eats the insects. The eagle, in turn, eats the mouse. So we are going to use this model to predict changes in a system. So, for instance, what if there was a virus that affected the butterfly, and now they were out of that food chain? We could predict what might happen to the mouse, and in turn, the eagle, because there is less butterflies for the mouse to eat. Would more of the mouse population die? And in turn, would that cause more of the eagle population to die? That's why we use these models to predict what's going to happen in the systems. So, like I said, there's two different types of systems. There's simple and there's complex. A simple system, you need to have, when you make a model of it, you want to include as much information about the system as possible, but you can look at a simple system and you can see how all the parts work, the inputs, the outputs, the process. You can look at the big picture. So this shows a food web, which is a little more complex than a food chain, but we can make predictions here. What would happen maybe if the rabbit population was decimated because of hunters. Okay, so this is a simple system, pretty easy to predict the changes. Complex systems are a little bit more complicated. So complex systems have many variables, and we usually use computers to keep track of all those variables. When we study or we model complex systems, we only look at specific parts. So, for instance, I'm looking at now a graphic of the polar ice caps on the top of Earth, and it shows in the red where the ice caps used to be in 1979, and then the white, or what you see now, is what exists today. This is a very complex model, or system. Lots of things affect the Arctic Sea ice, okay? So a lot of it's pollution, a lot of it's national warming trends. So if I am a scientist that studies polar bears, I'm only going to look at a specific part of this complex system. As opposed to being a meteorologist, maybe that studies weather patterns, I'm going to look at a completely different part of this system. So in a complex system, we generally don't always, as scientists, study the big picture. Instead, we specialize in small parts. And that's all I have for you this week, Trailblazers. I hope you have a great day.